Hey, everybody, we're going to talk about the benefits of going within. Again, if you've been following my story, I've been on this journey for about 15 years. Again, I treated myself like my own case study. So I have two master's degree, an advanced leadership certificate, tons of courses through free sites like edX, Coursera, things like that. And really, it was just wanting to know and understand and heal myself and get better. Um, as we know, like 95% of our actions and behaviors are conducted from our subconscious mind, right? But our other 5%, which is what we're aware of, is, not very much to be working with, right? Again, this is where that journey inward is so helpful, the teachers and professors throughout my time, a lot of stuff is thrown at you in life, whether it's through the media, through these YouTube videos, through news, through, readings and walls, or through your environment and your peer groups. Lots of information comes your way, and you have to kind of pick up on those intuitive signs, right? If something resonates or piques your curiosity, you gotta follow that. So that's kind of what I always did. Again, I had trauma from my childhood that my brain completely blocked out until I was about 25 or 26 years old. And I just couldn't believe that this could even happen, that I wouldn't remember any of this. And then all of a sudden I had all these memories, like the floodgates were open, right? So that started me on my psychology journey, and again, but throughout my educational and professional career, tons of trainings, lots of education and things like that. And again, I would follow those signs and synchronicities. My interpersonal communication class was really profound because that had a lot of information and a lot of little tidbits that I kind of followed those trails, right? So again, analyzing yourself, understanding, your motivations and your personality and do you feel like you have a sense of control? What is your locus of control? Do you feel like the outside or the inside world determines, where you're going to go in life? Trauma, neuroscience, physiology, biology, we have all these aspects to who we are, and being able to understand that was important to me. So, especially with my healing journey. So I was able to, again, follow this trail, which, again, lots of stuff is thrown at you. It's not always good and positive. Sometimes you have people around you who try to, knock you, off your path or discourage you. And again, that's just their own projections internally that they try to project on you. So never ever, believe that. Again, at one point, actually a lot of points in my life, I believed and I allowed my outside world to dictate where I was going to go in life, right? But through this 15-year journey and analyzing, taking all these assessments and being able to understand myself and journaling pretty much, at least 3 or 4 times a week for the past, 15 years. Eventually I will put out my book, but, being able to analyze yourself and understanding all of these different parts. Again, all of the information that's thrown at you isn't always positive and good and helpful and healthy, right? So you have to discern that. Well, people with trauma, again, that trauma affects the way our brain works, our motivations, our attachment style, all of that, especially if it started, in the younger childhood years. With that trauma is stored in again, that subconscious mind, which does dictate a lot of behaviors and the way you view your world and things like that. So it's important to recognize that. Through each assessment and each new topic, whether it be, again, neuroscience or psychology or abnormal psychology or understanding disorders and understanding environment, sociology, all these factors that play into who we are, again, through journaling, you're breaking down and you're analyzing all of that. So me with a lot of trauma in my past, right? You know, obviously my neuron pathways are built in my brain to allow our past experiences to dictate our outlook and our future behaviors, right? So it's important to be able to recognize that. And through learning all of these topics and subjects and analyzing myself and journaling, I was able to, number one, discover, where am I holding myself up in life? Is this a result of prior thinking, conditioning, my parents' bias, maybe that got projected onto me and I took on, things like, or even the media, right? And things that, yeah, that project onto us, we take that in. But through journaling, again, through journaling, you're present and you're in that 5% conscious mind, right? So you're very aware, but you're also exploring your subconscious mind at the same time. So through these 15 years, again, programming, right? There's teachers, we have influences, we have media, we have YouTube videos, all these things that factor in that we're taking in. We still have free will. And I'll tell you one thing, through this journey, it's been difficult. I've spent a lot of I always will show up to work if I'm physically ill, but if I need a mental health day, I don't get out of the house. Sometimes I won't get out of bed for a week, because it's really hard to face your shadow self. And I'll tell you, this ain't done in the unconscious mind, facing that shadow. It is here now. You're going to feel it all, and it's going to be intense, and it's going to suck, and it's going to be shitty, especially if you're dealing with a lot of shadows, a lot of negative conditioning, a lot of past prior experiences. It's going to take a warrior and a soldier to get through those, right? And this is where, again, it does get very lonely, because as you're analyzing life and you're recognizing all of this, hopefully you're cutting out, negative influences, negative behaviors, negative people, negative thought processes, and, maybe even biases that, again, were projected on you through conditioning, environments, culture, things like that. But through those 15 years, being able to consciously connect with my unconscious mind, and again, through that free will, because if I didn't, believe me, there was a million times where I wanted to give up, and I had people try to push me down, make up lies, rumors, say all kinds of negative stuff, and it wasn't true and all that. And I tell you, it was hard, especially when a lot of people that you love and trust turn their back on you and aren't even there for you during those times of need. And that kind of reinforces the abandonment and everything that you felt from abuse from childhood and all that, right? And it's very triggering. And so it's a very difficult time, and it's not easy, but I'll tell you, it is the most profound and beautiful and totally worthy journey, because I feel so strong. I faced all of those, I journaled, I analyzed, I didn't just take what was good for me. I took the bad parts of me too, and I dug in, and I also recognized one of the innate gifts that I do believe that God gave me that I never realized because of my abuse was the gift of discernment and understanding. I can really analyze from left to right, black to white, and understand everybody's perspective. So, but my own. This is where I wouldn't have got that perspective without going inward, right? So being able to analyze all of that is so, so important. But I'll tell you, I feel so strong. And again, those 15-year journey, that's why none of those projections, lies, rumors, whatever was said didn't get to me, because I know the beautiful person that I am, because I built myself up. I made those choices. I laid there in bed for those weeks dealing with that stuff. And it has nothing to do with programming, because I had good programming and I had bad programming, and I had it all coming at me, and I made those choices because I am strong. So, again, you need that support. I didn't have that support. I felt very alone during a lot of this because of some of the ways I was ostracized, and some of the people that believed some of the rumors that were spread about me that I just think it's just so ridiculous. But, again, I look at that is an unhealed version of them. Just like anybody who would say stuff that isn't true, that's a projection of them. That's some healing they have to do. And all I know is it doesn't really matter. None of it really matters, because I know who I am. I know what ideas were mine. I know how strong I am. And I know where my heart and motivation and purpose lies. And God is the only one that can take credit for that. God and myself. So with that being said, if you ever want any counseling, I do have my licensed social work degree now. So, I'm willing to talk to whoever, wherever, anybody that needs to talk or would like some guidance. Again, I have jobs that pay my bills, so I'm not worried about that. If you need somebody to talk to, or maybe some insight or understanding, I'm always here for y'all. So don't hesitate to reach out. Stay blessed, everybody.